I think like I think the bigger question for me around telecommuting is there seems to be sort of this new wave of the way people work. I think one result of that is telecommuting. You have a lot more freelancing, a lot of people working multiple jobs. So I don't know, it's something that you've seen at your church, I'm assuming, in Silicon Valley, where people are working new roles, and how does that affect your church? How does that affect the congregation?
I'd say for the most part, our people love it. That's a way of life in Silicon Valley, telecommuting. I mean, it's a results-oriented work environment in Silicon Valley. It's not an hours-based in the office work environment for most companies. And so many people are telecommuting, many people are working from home. Many entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley are starting companies where they are hiring kind of around the globe based on best wages. Good friend of mine, entrepreneur, he's hiring software engineers, and a lot of those software engineers he's not hiring in Silicon Valley because he has to pay a higher wage there, but he's hiring them from the Midwest, he's hiring them from the East Coast where he can pay a different wage. And so the whole way he runs his company is different, and certainly you don't have that face-to-face time every day, but there are creative ways for him to do that I think is healthy and good for the economy, because he can start this business and he can start it at a cheaper cost, but there is some relational loss in terms of a company's culture because you're not all together.
Yeah, one of the companies that we have our company does a combination. We have an office, but people work from home on Fridays, and honestly for us it's pretty flexible. People a lot of times people just work from home like during the middle of the week too. We don't have very stringent rules around coming to the office. A lot of people like coming into an office and working with other people, having face-to-face conversations. But I think one of the companies that we sort of have wanted to emulate, and I think a lot of companies wanted to emulate, is a company called InVision. I think they have more than 500 people that are working remote. And what they do is they have a friend of mine at InVision is like I think his title is like head of culture or something like that. And his role is really to make sure that in a remote-based company with hundreds of people, real relationships are being formed. And I think like a lot of companies that do a good job in that culture are actually more intentional about the offsites that they have. When they're hanging out, they actually like are more intentional about that, because like so many kind of jobs where you do go into office, you don't really have a deep relationship with your coworker anyways. So in terms of like that relational loss, it may not even be there. Like for our company, most years we do a international trip where we fly our whole company out to a international location. We spend a week to 2 weeks there. Like last year we went to Tokyo. The year before we went to New Zealand. But those are the times when like really deep relationships are formed. You're like on this offsite and you're all living in the same location, and you can do stuff like that with remote teams. That maybe if you assumed that if you were in the office that relationships were being formed and they really weren't, there would be sort of like a similar relational focus. So I think like relationships are never going to go away even with remote teams, and the good remote teams are actually like more aware of that than maybe some of the teams where you're in a physical location.
Well, I think there's a win for families in more remote working. In a lot of ways, it's a return to pre-industrial revolution, where most people worked on a farm at home, and they were with their spouse, with their kids, with their neighbors throughout the day, and that's where where work took place. So. At least in my church, people are loving it. What we have many companies in Silicon Valley have work from home Wednesdays, and that's the culture. So the middle day of the week, they're working from home. People love that, and oftentimes they're doing it much more than that. So it means oftentimes more time with your spouse, family, kids, and that's been really healthy, really good.
Yeah, and I think it's actually like more productive from a business standpoint too. Like the reason why we do work from home is so people don't have to drive to the office and waste time. And
you're not wasting time on their commute. The utility bill.
There's a lot of
a lot of ways that it benefits the company. You can save costs.
Right.